1 week season.
1 week season, fam, La Familia, welcome back. It is Monday, July 29th. We are a week into NFL training camps. Things are flying around, lots of happenings, lots of news. We got some injuries, we got some depth chart surprises. There's a lot going on. Of course, I am with 1 week season. Our Best Ball Plus 2024 subscription is rocking along. We have an exciting month ahead of us, kind of in the thick of draft season. This is what we've been waiting for. Without further ado, my co-host, Billy Gableman, StatATL. How are we doing today, Billy?
Morning, Mike. Doing great, buddy. Happy Monday to you. Excited to do another draft.
Yes. Very excited. And while we are here, for anyone new, we are going to be drafting on Drafters once again today. Drafters, and we'll get into it a lot, especially next week, which is something I'm going to talk about in a minute here. But Drafters, it is a cumulative scoring best ball contest, 17 weeks, no playoffs. Really cool format. Really love, just really so much about their platform and what their site offers. If you sign up at Drafters, use code OWS on your first deposit. You will get a 100% match up to $100. You can put $100 on, get $200 out of it. Highly encourage you do that. Obviously, free money is always nice. And the contest, they have their $15 contest, which is a $2.5 million prize pool, $500,000 to first. They also have a $2 contest. So if you are new to the best ball streets, it's a $2 entry fee, 70,000 total entries. It's going to be $25,000 to first place. So, low cost to entry, and you can get some good experience and kind of get a feel for your lay of the land, and then up to the 15 if you are so inclined. So, Billy, how has your drafting been going, this last week? Are you still, I know you had some stuff with the house, but are you kind of cranking up the drafts again now?
Cranking up the drafts again. Had kind of taken a little bit of a lull, both because of the housing stuff. For those of you who haven't tuned in before, I moved like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So finally got some stuff up on the walls, but we still got some barren walls and boxes. But, Best Ball Plus subscribers will kind of know, took some time off in July as well, just kind of based on some previous research that you had done, Mike. So, definitely ramping back up. Excited. I think there'll probably be some promotions from drafters, hopefully in August. Been trying to take advantage of all the different promos they've been offering. I think last weekend or 2 weeks ago, they kind of had one where you drafted 5, you got a free one. So for those people who are trying to max the contest, you got to take advantage of all the expected value you can, and getting free tickets and maximizing that is definitely one way to do it. Another is, obviously taking advantage of the OWS 100% deposit match.
Yeah, and sometimes drafters will do a deposit match as well. And then, even if you aren't planning on drafting or, doing a full 150 lineups, just paying attention when they have those kind of flash sales, which, like you said, I think it was last weekend, not yesterday, but the previous weekend, they had draft 5, you get one ticket for free. That just effectively, that turns it into you have lower cost basis for the entries that you have. So, it makes it a little bit easier, more likely for you to break even or create some value, have some return on your investment. So definitely worth checking out there. I'll be drafting today in the $2 contest. Looks like I have the 9th pick. But I do want to talk about, so next Monday at this time, we will be having, and I announced this on our training session last Tuesday for our Best Ball Plus subscribers at 1 week season. But next week, in place of Wake and Snake, we are going to have a day of drafters, it's called. So pretty cool event that I've been working, the last few weeks to kind of put together. But basically the idea is that we're going to do this kind of all day. We're going to bring on some various guests. We're going to have a couple Best Ball Plus subscribers, which I will be dropping something into the Discord if you're a subscriber. So watch for that. Trying to find a couple people to come on and draft with us. You yourself will be joining me. And then we have Zandamir and Hilo from 1 week season. And a special treat for the OWS faithful, JM himself making a rare early August appearance. He's going to be on jamming with me for about an hour and a half during the afternoon time frame. So that will start next week at 10 a.m. Eastern. And we'll have about a 4-hour segment, take a little break, and then have another 4-hour segment from 3 to 7 Eastern. So really excited about that. We also have some people from outside OWS who are going to be joining us. And if you're familiar, many of you are probably familiar, but if you're not, Dr. Roto is going to be joining us in the morning session, as well as Greg from Coach Speak Index, kind of the brains behind that whole thing. He runs the Coach Speak Index Twitter account, which I highly recommend if you don't already follow, especially at this point in the season. Coach Speak Index, just wildly valuable. Some great insight that he has on situations and what coaches are saying and different team dynamics. So definitely hope to have you guys all there. We'll be drafting drafters teams, talking about the contest, giving out some free tickets, and potentially giving out some OWS stuff. So definitely encourage all of you viewers to check it out. We also have a price drop coming up on our Best Ball Plus product that goes into effect on August 1st, which is this Thursday. So if any of you have been looking at joining, that price drops to $129. It started at $199 back in May, and it'll be down to $129. And you'll still have access to everything that we've done in past sessions. So
nice. I see you started with Puka here.
Yep, Puka, and I'm just going to go ahead and maybe a little reach. We'll take Debo. So I guess with all of that said, we're kind of rolling along here.
I have 8.
Anyone from these first 2 rounds, I guess, that you have that you think news from this first week, relevant stuff to pay attention to or that we can talk about today?
I'm looking to see who's gone off the board. One of the things that we started actually today over a 1 week season, I guess this will be a little insight for you, Mike. We'll be putting it out on Twitter, something that I write on Sundays. Just kind of a recap of the previous week training camp news, just kind of some of the biggest news and stories from the last week. Obviously, all the training camps, all veterans are reported. So all camps are kind of in full swing. So there's a lot of news that's coming out. We try to grab the most pertinent info, obviously, from those who follow 32 beat writers or Coach Speak or, just Roto World. You guys see there's so much news that comes out. We try to encapsulate it into one place, which is kind of some of the meat and potatoes. I'm kind of looking at this news. Brandon Ayuk, I think, is maybe of note. Just kind of his situation. I'm not sure that I'm doing anything different with his draft. I don't foresee him. I don't foresee like Jamar Chase holding out, but both of these guys are at practice, but not practicing.
Chase or Higgins?
Chase.
Chase isn't practicing? No, I had not seen that. Gotcha.
I think he's trying to get a new contract.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
but we're still 6 weeks out from regular season games. So to me, I think we're probably too early to read too much into that type of stuff. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
do you see what just happened in the 3 slot here?
I did.
Yeah, I think generally those situations with star players are, teams are going to find a way to make it work. So, yeah, I mean, I think I got Brandon Ayuk at like pick 31, 32 a couple times over the weekend. So, just a lot of fear there. I
It's
don't know.
not all that often that I get to say like Tua Tagovailoa would have been available 100 picks later. It's not all that often that you get to say that.
Yeah. Hopefully this guy levels this out so this the whole thing doesn't get tossed. Let's see. We'll just go ahead with Pittman.
So Mike, I think we've talked about on previous streams that I keep a spreadsheet of all this. I only have one Nakua, Debo, Pittman team.
Okay. There you go.
So hopefully you don't take the same QB and tight end. Obviously, the rest of the players will probably be different. But
what contest is that in, though?
It's in the original $2 mini.
Ooh, all right. Then we're fine.
Yeah. We can both win.
Yeah.
Very excited to, I think I closed out. I mean, I still got about 20 of those drafts and that are still going in the slow drafts. And so excited to grab some guys in the 19th and 20th round as we get some of this kind of more breaking news.
Yeah, so speaking of that, Isaiah Pacheco just went. And he's a guy who seems to have a stranglehold as the top option in Kansas City. But something to keep in mind is that it's the NFL and running backs tend to get hurt. So that number 2 spot for the Chiefs, obviously very valuable. One of the bigger things from this week, Deneric Prince, a second year, I believe, running back. He is running as the clear number 2 running back for the Chiefs, ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, ahead of like everyone else. So, an undrafted player, but he's got some pop to him. He can move a little bit. And obviously, like it's a meritocracy there. Like they're going to play they're trying to win Super Bowls. They don't care when you were drafted. They don't care what they're paying you. You look at Pacheco himself is a 7th round draft pick. So, they're willing to roll with these guys at the running back position. They've shown. So, yeah, I think Prince is a, pretty interesting guy. He's risen, he was going from undrafted to, I'll take him in like the 17th or 18th round sometimes. But honestly, that might be a little later than it should be.
Yeah, no. So Deneric Prince was in camp for them last year and was like a late cut at the end of August. Back again this year. Apparently, coaches gave him some stuff they wanted to see him improve on and work on, and apparently, reports have been very positive. And as you alluded to, kind of running as the backup to Pacheco. So, a guy that up until probably a week ago was going completely undrafted in contests. So,
yeah, definitely. And then, it's always the other thing I want to talk about is with the Chiefs is their wide receiver situation. It seems like Rishi Rice, who just went off the board at 54th overall, he was going in the 7th round for quite a while. Occasionally later, Hollywood Brown going off the board now. I'm sure Xavier Worthy will go soon. It's wild to see how things continue to fluctuate with that situation and ADPs. And it's really hard to get a grasp on, and I've said this for a couple months now, like the Chiefs wide receivers that could be like an inflection point of like one of those things where if you get it right, you have just such a huge edge on the field. Because if one of these guys like becomes like the guy for, Patrick Mahomes with Kelsey aging a little bit, obviously that's wildly valuable. So, do you have any? I mean, we saw the bomb to Worthy. It's things sound promising on Rice avoiding suspension. I guess what's your overall thoughts there?
Yeah, I kind of wrote up some thoughts on that, and really more of it was just around Rishi Rice's ADP rise, going kind of
Mhm.
from 7th round. I've seen him go in the 4th round several times in the last couple of days. He went at 54 here, which I think is his current ADP. I think he's at like 53.7, right around there.
54.8, yeah. So it
Okay.
basically went right on schedule there.
But yeah, I mean, typically kind of seeing him, I think Mahomes has got an ADP of around 45. And so seeing him go a lot of times getting paired up with Mahomes, kind of that 4th, 5th round. I find like I'm seeing a lot. But yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think if you're going to, if you're going to be doing 150 of these drafts, I think it's totally in your best interest to take shots on different rosters with different Chiefs. Because there is, I think, a strong possibility that one of them separates and becomes a really strong value, even for somebody drafted in the 5th, 6th, 7th round.
Mhm.
So to me, I don't, I know when we play DFS, some weeks we have a rule about, at least one Dolphin or at least one Chief. Maybe not a hard and fast rule, but you get where I'm going with this. I don't
Mhm.
have quite a rule when I'm doing a draft if I want to have at least one Chief, but I am making a concerted effort to make sure that I am taking different Chiefs on different builds, just trying to maximize my likelihood of getting it right.
Right. And we talk, one of the concepts I talk about is usable weeks. And, it's entirely within the realm that one of these guys excels, but, the other guys still give you, you know, enough usable weeks to kind of be worth their pick, especially if you're drafting correctly from a structural standpoint. Um, with my last selection, so my last two selections took Lamar Jackson and then Kyle Pitts. So Kyle Pitts, uh, there was some buzz about him. Apparently, that Kirk Cousins been cleared, fully cleared, has been practicing in training camp. There's been some buzz about Pitts. At least one of the days, I saw, beat writers talking about how it seemed like Cousins was locked in on him, was targeting him a lot. The connection looks good, etc. Um, so he's an interesting spot. He's a guy that it wouldn't be shocking if he gives us a top 3 tight end season. It also wouldn't be shocking if he kind of just is similar to what we've seen, the last couple of years. Probably better than Arthur Smith days, but he could just, it wouldn't shock if he disappointed again. I think the overall point though is you can see how Pitts or there's a lot of news that we're going to get where it's like, is it really news? Like Drake London had overheated in practice and he missed a couple days. And so Pitts was like the top target and Cousins was throwing to him a lot. Like that shouldn't be that shouldn't change our view, I guess, is my opinion.
Sorry, I got a visitor I have to deal with. Hold on. Toast is making an appearance.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think I echo those sentiments. I'm looking at the one team that I have. It doesn't have Lamar or Pitts, so we will not be building a very similar team outside of the first 3 wide receivers.
There you go.
I think some of the news, I know we were just talking about Pitts. Some of the news that I saw kind of come out of kind of Falcons camp. Rondale Moore, one of their free agent signings. Somebody who's been getting drafted frequently in the 17th, 18th, kind of 19th round, kind of the back end of almost every draft.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of running with the number 2s right now. ex-San Francisco 49er Ray McLoud appears to kind of have the current firm role on that slot wide receiver. So, McLeod, somebody who's going completely undrafted. I'm not sure I've ever seen him get drafted in one that I've done. So, just something to kind of keep in mind. If you kind of need a flyer in the 20th round on a Kirk Cousins build, he's somebody that I don't mind taking a shot on.
Yeah, I like that call. And I even like it, it kind of makes me like Darnell Mooney a little bit more. Just because I don't know that McLeod is like he doesn't seem like a huge threat, right? Whereas Moore, he's a little bit higher pedigree. He was a former second round pick. I don't know if he was always used right in Arizona, but like with him and Mooney both coming in, kind of viewed as similar types, I guess. Uncertainty in that slot role just makes me more confident in the kind of top 3 receiving options and Bijan.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that shout. So one of the guys, guy just went off the board in the 7th round at the 11 hole, Ramondre Stevenson. And just got that new contract, I think $36 million. Big contract. He's frequently getting drafted around the same spot, 7th round. And was interesting to me, I actually heard this somewhere else and then went and kind of verified it myself. So New England brought in new offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt. Previously from the Browns, was with the Bengals before that. And he's had some good running backs at those 2 spots, whether it was, Joe Mixon and Giovanni Bernard for a few years in Cincinnati, last 4 years in Cleveland, obviously Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Jerome Ford. During his tenure, he's never had a running back catch more than 44 passes. So, which is not even averaging 3 a game. So, I think a lot of the value that people see in Ramondre Stevenson is, he's this pass catching back. New England is likely on paper, looks like they're going to be trailing a lot in second halves of games. Like that's kind of the script for me, that's kind of where I would be leaning if I was considering Ramondre in kind of that 7th round. To me, those stats were, I don't want to say alarming, but definitely eye-opening. And it's just, he's kind of going within 6-7 picks of like James Conner. I just don't know that I could ever get that. I mean, obviously, picks are roster specific, but man, that's just, that was an interesting stat. And, the name is Stat Atlanta. So we do like our stats.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that is, you had told me, you had kind of teased me last night that you said you were going to, you had a Ramondre stat. I wasn't sure where you were going with that, but that is interesting, especially when you think about it from like a drafter's accumulative scoring site where you're looking at over the course of the season, where, sometimes game script, maybe a guy gets 1 or 2 games where he catches a few passes and that can kind of skew your view. But, and his main competition, right, is Antonio Gibson, who's kind of himself more a pass catching back. So, when you already have that theoretically that limited ceiling for his season long output, that you could have like a thing where you have different roles and Gibson's cutting into that even more so. So definitely interesting. And I guess, the Patriots offense itself is like a little bit of a crapshoot, right? Like, what are they gonna look like? We still don't even know, their week 1 starter. Who's your money on, May or Brissett?
Week 1 starter, Brissett.
Yeah.
But my drafting portfolio does not reflect that opinion.
Right. Well, I guess, do you think May starts at some point this season? And when do you think that would be?
I do think that he gets cracked this season. I think when that is kind of dependent on how the season plays out a bit for the Patriots. In terms of like projected points, I think this was something that Hilo posted in the Discord like 3 or 4 weeks ago. They're projected for literally dead last, like 30, 40, 50 points worse than like the number 31 team.
Right.
So, I don't, myself, Vegas, I think you as well as part of the team previews. Like we don't foresee them winning a ton of games. So I would probably guess it's probably around halfway. And for me, the builds that I'm taking, I don't want to say a fair bit, but I'm probably over the field. I think I have more than 7% or 8% May. They're on builds where it's more of an elite quarterback. Generally I try to be conscious of the buys, and kind of knowing like I don't want him as my second quarterback on, let's look like a Dak Prescott build or a Jalen Hurts build, because I'm not sure he's going to be playing in week 7 or week 5. But if I've got, obviously I don't want to pair him with Lamar because they both have week 14 buys, but maybe a Josh Allen who's got a week 12 bye. I think he makes a good, probably third quarterback, but you could be frisky and try to go 2 quarterback build with like just Allen and May, because then you're really allowing yourself to kind of catch up on some of the draft capital with, taking Josh Allen in the 4th round. Obviously you're passing on a strong wide receiver, a strong running back there. Like I don't mind taking a shot and, waiting as my second quarterback to be Drake May in like the 18th round. That way I've got some time to kind of take more running backs and wide receivers in that gap. But what about you? Where do you stand on that with Drake May?
I think it'll be sooner than later. Generally, I think, that like mid-season is kind of the way, but I also like, it wouldn't shock me if he just kind of takes over. The thing with the Patriots, Belichick's gone, but like it's still kind of like Gerard Mayo, like his, is kind of within that whole Patriots mindset. And the things I've heard coming out about May, that like we know he has physical tools, but it sounds like his leadership and just how he's interacting with teammates and picking things up is like really high, like at a high level. So it wouldn't surprise me if, I don't think it's likely, but it wouldn't shock me if he was the week 1 starter. And I think probably more likely is just like by week 5 or 6. But again, like you kind of alluded to, it's hard to like bet on that on a roster. Little bit risky there. And he's a guy that his skill set, he's a better runner than a lot of people realize. Pretty good physical player. And it's just so cheap to stack them, right? Like if he does end up good, like Jalen Polk is like a 12th round pick, who he'll probably be going off the board pretty quick here. Hunter Henry's like a 13th, 14th round pick. And then, everybody else is like we don't even really know, I guess, I guess that's something we could talk about is the Patriots wide receiver room, just because there's literally like 7 guys. It sounds like Juju Smith-Schuster's career is basically over. I don't know if you have read the things on him, but it doesn't sound promising.
Doesn't sound promising. I do like Javon Baker as late round shots. He's typically a guy 18th, 19th round. I don't mind taking 20th round shots on Kendrick Bourne. There's like 7 guys in that wide receiver room, and I think right now it's kind of anyone's guess at where that shakes out. And so it's just kind of one of those situations to continue to monitor. It's something I'll continue to kind of make note of in my Monday kind of weekly things for Twitter, for X. Sorry, it's still hard to say that.
Yeah.
I noticed with your last, I guess it's 2 picks ago now, because you just took Johan Dotson. But I see in the 10th round, you grab Chase Brown. Kind of some interesting news out of camp between Chase Brown and Zach Moss. Anything you want to kind of chat about there? I
Yeah.
know we put some
So
thoughts in the Discord about it, but
it sounds like Brown has been primarily both have been running with the ones, but Brown, it sounds like, has been more featured, has been out there more. Zach Moss going basically in the 7th round, sometimes would fall to the 8th for most of the draft cycle so far. Now you see in this draft, he went at 92. His ADP has fallen to like the mid 8th round now. So adjusting there, Brown has been like a 11th round pick. He's moved up to the 10th. I took him in the early 10th here. So definitely a spot where like it's exciting. I do like Chase Brown. He was on my 7th place team in drafters last year. But I mentioned this in our Discord, but like he is like the quicker, the more explosive back. He's, shifty and he can run. And right now these guys are playing in shorts. They're not hitting. So like he's the guy who's going to stand out, right? He's the guy. There was one play that forget who it was. I think it was Braylon Allen. Might have been somebody else. It doesn't really matter because you see him all over. But it's like a clip out of camp and it's like hyping him like, oh, look how good he looks. But it's one of those, he's running and he's running fast through a hole. But like there's multiple guys who are like right there, but then they like pull up and obviously don't hit him. And he just keeps running. He runs the full 50 yards. But it's like, well, in a real game, that's probably like an 8-yard run.
it's like a 10-yard gain, but okay.
Yeah. So like it's hard to decipher. And like Moss is more of like the grinder. He's the guy who, when the season comes along. And I think, that was kind of my expectation throughout based on how they built the team and how the back's profile is that Moss would be like maybe like a 15 carry, 2 or 3 target guy. And Brown would be like a 8 to 10 carry guy who gets, 4 to 7 targets depending on the game script or whatever. So, it is exciting for Brown. Like them playing him more is obviously noteworthy, but at the same time, you have to consider the context of like Moss's skill set is going to be more valued when people are actually hitting each other.
Yeah, I think I hate that we agree on so far almost everything today, but yeah, I think you nailed that.
So Justin Herbert, so the guy on the clock here, just took Justin Herbert in the last round. So some stuff out of LA with Herbert specifically. Sounds like him and Ladd McConkey have a pretty solid connection. McConkey is a guy I haven't been super high on, but have to be willing to adjust and strong beliefs, loosely held kind of mentality of like, you can be wrong on these things sometimes. So what are your thoughts on that Chargers situation and kind of what we've heard there? And obviously, you can talk about Quentin Johnston as well.
Yeah, I mean, so the reports out of camp the first week have been very positive on Ladd McConkey and his chemistry with Justin Herbert. He's been running with DJ Chark, with Josh Palmer with the ones, and 2023 first round, pick Quentin Johnson. It's been kind of been delegated to the twos. We still see Quentin Johnson getting drafted, I want to say around ADP 150, 160. Whereas DJ Chark, he's generally going 210, 215. So maybe that's something that we'll see the market adjust to a little bit more in the next week or two. To me, and we've talked about this on previous Wake and Snakes, but again, a little bit similar sentiments to you. I haven't been taking a ton of Ladd McConkey just because of the draft capital of where he was going. And I found myself taking more Josh Palmer just because he's going 3 rounds, 4 rounds. It's at least 30 picks of ADP difference, I think, even now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have some Lad, but not as much as I have of Palmer. And I don't know that I have a single Quentin Johnson share across a couple hundred rosters now. Just in watching Charger games last year, he was just horrible, and it's just been so hard to kind of click that box.
Yeah. It's hard to, he's a guy who really, if he started falling to like the 18th, 19th round, around these like Khalif Raymond, Jalen Hyatt types, I think that's more apt of a bet for Quentin Johnston, or like kind of the range of where he actually falls at this point, as opposed to, he's still, even with his drop in draft position, he's still going in this like 14th, 15th round, where like Demarcus Robinson, Adam Thielen, Demario Doug, like these guys are like locked in top 3 type receivers. I guess since we're on that, receivers in this range, Jermaine Burton, we talked a bit about the Bengals backfield before, talked a bit about Jamar Chase earlier, but Burton has been drafted kind of in this round, and I've drafted a decent amount of him too. I think he's a talented guy coming out of Alabama. And with the T. Higgins stuff, didn't really know what was going on, but it sounds like Andre Yoshivas, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. It sounds like he's getting pumped up a little bit, and kind of sounds like he's going to be the number 3 guy. And he's got the skill set to play inside as well. So interesting spot there. I've been drafting a ton of him the last week or so.
Yep, same. He's frequently available in the 20th round. So again, if you're wrong, it's not a ton of draft capital that you're laying out.
Mm-hmm.
We had a couple subscriber questions, actually, a couple running backs there in the 13th round, I guess a round and a half ago. Seen a couple of them with big rises over the last week or two between Ray Davis and J.K. Dobbins.
Mm-hmm.
I think the bigger news out of that comes around J.K. Dobbins. Full participant in camp so far, kind of coming off of an ACL injury. And so, it was kind of alluded to that Gus Edwards is recovering from like an undisclosed injury. And so Dobbins has been acting as the RB1 so far in camp. And if he's fully healthy, which he's always had a problem kind of staying healthy, I don't know that he's ever played a full season. But he certainly has some upside. He's a guy I know that we've talked about on stream. I think he's like my 3rd or 4th highest exposure running back. He's just been a guy that I have liked. I've never lived in Baltimore, but I've gone to a couple Ravens games, and I've always just kind of liked what I've seen out of him, and just the potential. And I know he's coming up now, going in that 13th, 14th round, but he was going 16th, 17th round, and it was just kind of one of those where, if I'm wrong, it's not really hurting me to take him in the 16th or 17th round. So I have a good bit of exposure to him.
Right.
But again, we're not taking victory laps on the first week of training camp, but he's a guy that I do like. Yeah, 2 at 27 is insane. For those people who don't know, there is a chat function in drafters. It doesn't get used very often, and typically it's for comments just like that, or it's for comments for people being mad at somebody about them sniping. Why did you take my guy?
Looking at that guy's draft, it's been pretty
it's been fine other than those picks.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if, because he took Tyreek and Waddle, he just went to like Q Tua and then got disconnected, or he went to Q him and accidentally he didn't realize he was up. It came up to him quick and he hit draft instead of Q. But yeah, I was worried that this was going to turn into one of those where, it's somebody does something crazy, and Drafters is really good about canceling those drafts where like potential collusion, or, it's just Yeah, it's clearly like a disadvantage, especially for this contest where everybody's competing against everyone. It's not the playoff style where a
Mhm.
lot of those teams who may benefit from a couple teams tanked in their draft, it gets evened out anyways with the weekly stuff. Um, but yeah, I was glad to see that guy got it together. Um, Kendre Miller just went off the board. He's down. His ADP is down. It's still his ADP is still at 143 on like by the statistics, but anybody who's been drafting the last week, this is kind of the range he's going in 15th, 16th round. So I guess do you have any thoughts on him? I know he hurt his hamstring. He missed practice, and then his head coach Dennis Allen kind of let him have it to the media, kind of directly to the media. Kind of my take on it, and I shared this with our subscribers. But it's the Saints are a cash-strapped team. Like they keep kicking the can down the road on their terrible salary cap management. So they don't have like a ton of options like to do different things. And Miller was a third round pick just a year ago. Obviously, the coach was frustrated in that moment. And, he made a comment alluding to like it's hard to make the team if you're always hurt. But like to me, that's like trying to that's leveling off some frustration and kind of, there's a difference between what he says in that moment and like, would they actually cut him? I guess, do you think there's any chance that he would be cut? I kind of think I'm good with, drafting him in this range for sure. And I guess to finish out the question, do you have any thoughts? Does this change how you view Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams?
I'm going to say I hope that he doesn't get cut because I'm definitely over the field on my exposure to him. I was taking him in the 120s and 130s just a few weeks ago and not having second thoughts about it. So, I think you've laid out the situation pretty well there. I don't think it's that realistic that he gets cut. And kind of same as you, I'm finding him in that 15th, 16th round, 170s, 180s frequently with the ability to draft him there. And so to me, I'm taking those shots. When he falls, I'm not trying to reach for him. Like on this build at 177, he was there, but Isaiah Likely much more of a priority for you with Lamar and not Mark Andrews. So you have to do what makes sense for each roster. It's kind of why we've kind of talked about in the past about it's great to have rankings, but that the rankings are really only as good as each draft. So yeah, I think you probably would have considered him if he was there at 184, if he was there in the 16th round. You only have one other
That's
week.
kind of what when I took Likely, I was thinking, well, I had seen Miller and thought, well, we should talk about him. And thought I would have taken him over Johnson had he fallen there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Where are we at here? Drake May, who we talked about earlier, he just went. Did you see or did you hear the stuff? Roman Wilson, the rookie for the Steelers, sounded like he had a couple really good practices this last week. I guess just in general, I have Jalen Warren on this roster, but they're a team that, like as we know, like they tend to just be competitive every year. They tend to find a way to have their nose in it. I guess what are your thoughts on them? On that offense as a whole, and I guess on Roman Wilson, his potential.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Roman Wilson's a guy that I've been taking some shots on because he's seen his draft stock, despite the positive news, he's seen his draft stock kind of fall. His ADP has fallen over the last couple of weeks. And so frequently kind of able to get him in the, the 190s, the 180s, 190s range in a lot of drafts that I've done. To me, I think the bigger news that's kind of come out, and I don't know that it's like big news, but around the Steelers is the fact that Russell Wilson has this calf strain and has missed every day of training camp so far. So Justin Fields, who we don't project to be the starter week one, or at least I don't project him as a starter week one. The coaches are kind of getting to see him run with the ones, getting to see his legs, getting to see his deep ball. These are things that Russell Wilson has kind of struggled with the last couple of years. I'll go on record in saying I think that Russell Wilson is completely washed. I know you're in Wisconsin. You're a Badger fan. I hate to say that about Russell Wilson.
I'm not a Badger fan.
You're not? Well, I know
I'm in Wisconsin.
Okay. But not a Badger fan.
No.
Okay. Well, doesn't change my take that Russell Wilson is washed. Yeah, oh my God, are we going to see Greg Dortch?
Yeah, I'll do it for the OWS.
For the OWS faithful.
We'll take Dortch.
Yeah, so to me, I think the bigger news this week, and I think you even alluded to it in the Discord as well on Sunday. Like, I think it's interesting because I feel like it's giving the coaches a glimpse of like what could be. Now, again, like Fields isn't overly shining in camp. He's apparently, the reports are very similar to what they were in Pittsburgh, in Chicago, where it's just very inconsistent. But he's shown some flash plays with deep balls, with using his legs. And so, I think that maybe leads to Tomlin having a little bit of a shorter leash. If the Steelers get off to a slow start, maybe that makes them move to Fields a little earlier. And so, I don't know. Fields has kind of been a guy that I don't mind taking shots on in, 3 QB builds in the, 19th, 20th round. He's frequently available. I mean, I think he's still on the there. He literally just went as I said that.
Did you see the guy who took Wilson? That was his first quarterback.
What?
1 QB, 5 running backs, 10 receivers, 2 tight ends. Yeah.
Well, I guess he's going to.
He's not a rookie.
There's nothing wrong with waiting on QBs, but you got to get 3 quarterbacks that can actually start. And
yeah, we'll see.
Right now he's got 1. I mean,
he is taking on risk. He's risk tolerant, it seems.
I wonder if he's going to go grab Sam Darnold and Aiden O'Connell with his next 2 round picks.
Yeah, or McCarthy Minshew. Those guys, because of the uncertainty, are not being drafted much. So, interesting approach there.
Yeah, I know you had a team that cashed last year that we've talked about on either training sessions or one of these where it cashed and your 3 quarterbacks were poo-poo.
It more than cashed. It finished in like the top 700 in the entire out of 80,000 or however many entries there were. And it had Mac Jones, who got benched, Bryce Young, who had like the worst season for a number 1 overall pick almost ever, and Desmond Ridder, who also got benched. So, considering those were the quarterbacks, the rest of it was pretty solid. But yeah,
there's a tough needle to thread, but it can be done.
The AJ Dillon just went off the board here. So Dillon, you hear it a lot, the best shape of his life, but there's actual statistics around him. Apparently he's down 12 pounds from where he reported last year, and his body fat is down from 9% to 4%. Obviously he's a pretty big fellow, so he's pretty jacked right now. The Packers in offense, we expect to be very good this season. That becomes a spot where Marshawn Lloyd, the rookie running back, who everybody's been excited to draft. I've taken a good amount of him, but he has missed some time. I got to check on him if he's back, but he's had a hip injury. His coach said he's going to miss a few days, so he'll probably be back today or soon. But for rookies missing time, Dillon, obviously, the Packers have the same coaching staff. It's an interesting spot. He's a guy that, those 19th, 20th round picks, it's appealing for me.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I think I don't have very many shares of him, but I've taken him on a few builds. Honestly, really just more to hedge. against some Marshawn Lloyd, because I definitely over the field there. He's a guy that I love kind of taking in the late 130s. You see him fall to the 140s sometimes. It's kind of like your RB4, RB5 on builds. He definitely has that upside. But yeah, I mean, certainly nothing wrong with hedging here. I love that you took Dulcich. It's a guy I've been taking a lot in the 19th, 20th round as my third tight end. I know we've talked about him before.
Yeah, well, and he's another guy that in this first week of camp generated a ton of attention and buzz. He looks healthy. He looks like the player that kind of he's been projected to be. We got a glimpse of it his rookie year, like a 5 or 6 game stretch where he was very good. And obviously that Denver situation, we had a subscriber ask, do we foresee a Michael Thomas role or Alvin Kamara role in Denver? I don't, I don't like I think it's easy to think of those things, but coaches are usually going to build around, their players and their skill sets. Thomas was a 2nd round pick out of Ohio State, high pedigree, physically had the tools. I don't see, like Cortland Sutton he's physically the guy who kind of fits that mold. I don't see him, he doesn't have that skill set though, like the short area stuff that Thomas had. And Alvin Kamara, like the way he was used, he incredible contact balance, just a really talented player. He's a guy that I don't see any like game changers in that backfield, like anywhere near what Kamara was capable of. So to answer that question, I don't foresee a role like that. And as far as Dulcich goes, that makes him even more appealing because it doesn't seem like there's going to be like some receiver siphoning 140 targets, or some running back getting 100 targets and being like heavily featured. So he definitely a high upside play for, that 19th, 20th round.
Yeah, no, agree with you. I like that. Same. I think high upside. I don't know that I would say he has the same ceiling as like a Laporta last year. I don't think he's got wide receiver, tight end 1 like overall in his range of outcomes. But he, in my opinion, he could be a top 12, a top 15 guy.
Well, and it's situational, right? Like Laporta was in like a similar situation where he had a clear path to being like the tight end, that like being on the field a ton, had a good skill set, but he was in a great offense. Dulcich, kind of the same thing, but I think you mentioned the graphic high-low shared with projected total points for the season for teams, and I think the Patriots were last, and I think the Broncos were the team just ahead of them.
Yeah, the Broncos are either 30th or 31st for sure.
I pulled up Kenneth Gainwell. You had brought this up in your thing that I think is going out on X today. You want to talk quick about him, and then we can finish up?
Yeah, I think we've got a couple other subscriber questions I think we should kind of hit on as well. But yeah, Kenneth Gainwell, not surprising to see him running with the ones ahead of rookie Will Shipley. He is a veteran. He's been with the team for, a lot of years, but he's been a guy that's consistently going undrafted. And similar to what we spoke about earlier, I'm trying to think of what running back group we were talking about. Huh?
Prince.
Oh, yeah. Similar to the Chiefs, the Eagles are what we think is going to be another prolific kind of top 5, top 10 for sure offense this season. The number 2 running back behind Saquon is a valuable spot to have. So it's a situation for me to continue to monitor. I think for me, I'm taking some shots on him in the 20th round on teams where I need a 5th or a 6th running back. I've actually taken him, I think, as a 7th running back on a team where I just went like 6 straight wide receivers to start the draft. I think he's a guy that could have some value. Even if Barkley doesn't get injured, he may still give you some usable weeks. So he's a guy that I like taking some shots on late. I think one of the other roles we wanted to chat about from the subscriber questions, we're kind of leading more similar to Dulcich, some later round tight ends. I think the subscriber specifically called out the Chargers, Commanders, and Giants. You have any thoughts on those three? I'm going to take a quick peek here in the Discord and any other kind of market news we want to hit on.
There weren't any others. Yeah, I mean the Chargers. So you have Hayden Hurst. He missed a lot of time with a severe concussion last year for the Panthers. Previously with the Falcons and Ravens. Has kind of bounced around. Donald Parham, very athletically gifted, like 6'8", huge target. Had a nice stretch where he was catching touchdowns early last season. And then who else? Oh, Will Dissly they brought in from Seattle. So, we already think that they are going to want to lean more run heavy. And then you have, a decent receiver core with McConkey. Sounds like building a connection. Chark, a downfield threat. Josh Palmer, his relationship with Herbert. So I guess it's not really a situation where I don't see any of these guys becoming like a 70% snap share guy. I think they're all kind of going to be involved. Obviously, injuries could change that. But it's tough for me, in this format to pull the trigger on one of those guys. Commanders, I think Ertz is going to be more involved than people realize. Ben Sinnott, the rookie, the Laporta effect is that everyone, him and Kincaid even, everyone thinks these tight ends are going to come in and produce right away. And I think Ertz is probably going to be more involved than people who were excited about Sinnott are going to be after he was drafted in the second round. And he's more of an H-back type guy anyways. He's kind of like a fullback tight end hybrid. So, I think his scouting report, his biggest strength was like his blocking. So, that's kind of my thoughts there. I'll let you talk about the Giants if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think my only thoughts on the Giants are, in general, they're not an offense I'm super enthused about. I have been taking some I'm not drafting their running backs hardly ever. I'm taking some shots on Neighbors, specifically when he falls a little bit. I have a hard time taking him over some of those other guys in the second round at wide receiver. But he falls into the third round a lot. I've taken him in the fourth round a couple of times, kind of when I'm in that 10, 11, 12 hole. In general, I think it's Theo Johnson. If you're targeted, if you want to take a shot on a 20th round tight end for the Giants, I just don't. I think that there are better options. Of just the guys that we're talking about, like I'd much rather take a shot on Dulcich. I'd much rather take a shot on Zach Ertz. For me, I have more. I don't want to say I have more confidence in those offenses because all three of the Giants, the Broncos, Washington, I'm definitely the highest on of those offenses, but I'm not super enthused about the Chargers either. So they're not guys I'm taking a ton of kind of late.
Even Dawson Knox, he's a guy I know you've talked about a little bit, but
Also, the news this week out of Bill's camp was that a reporter flat out asked, is Dalton Kincaid going to be kind of running almost 100% of the snaps with how great of a year he had with the thinned out wide receiver? And is it Sean McDermott? Is that Bill's head coach? Basically came out and said, no, we fully intend on keeping Dawson Knox, as part of the offense. He was really singing his praises about his skills. And, so to me, I think that, and this is something I know we've talked about before, I think I'm a little higher on Dawson Knox than you, Mike, but I like taking shots on him on the 19th, 20th round. I don't think that he's a guy that's going to give you a ton of I don't want to call them spike weeks, but I think you'll get several usable weeks out of him at tight end. Obviously, it's dependent on what the rest of your tight end core is. If you go bully tight end and take 2 tight ends in the first 6 rounds, like, I don't know how many usable weeks you're going to get out of Dawson Knox just because of who he's competing against on your roster. But in general, he's a guy I like taking shots on too.
Well, yeah, and he's had some, obviously Josh Allen, Bill's offense is always a pretty solid bet. And he's had some prior to last year. Last year, he only had 2 games with double-digit PPR points, but he missed time in the middle of the season with injury. Obviously, they still had Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis at that time. So the receiver core there's a lot more questions now than there ever has been during his career with them. And, everyone thinks about Kincaid and does Knox get pushed to the side? Knox is like one of the top 10 highest paid tight ends in the league. Like, he has a pretty big contract. They clearly believe in him. I don't think he's going away. And that's kind of why among those like top like 6 or 7 tight ends, Kincaid's probably the one I have the least. But then you also think of it from the standpoint of Knox has had some good games in the past. Now, what if Kincaid misses time? Everyone thinks about, if Knox misses time or if Kincaid takes over the role. I don't think Knox is going to take the role away from Kincaid, but it's also within the realm that Kincaid misses a few weeks. And in that scenario, Knox is an 80-90% snap share tight end playing with Josh Allen on a high octane offense where they don't have as of now, don't have like an alpha, like skill set type wide receiver. So super interesting way to build. And as you talked about, something we talk about a lot is draft, roster construction and understanding the players you already have on the roster. When does a player like Knox make sense where he can give you those usable weeks? He can kind of help you separate and actually add points to your total. So I think that's a great shout. I think you've been kind of on him for a couple months here. So some what's the word I'm looking for? You're like confirming your priors. You're confirming your priors. But no, I mean, it is.
Buddy, I've been high on Jordan Addison too, and that speeding ticket, the DUI stuff, that ain't going to help. You've seen him fall into the 90s now, and he's a wide receiver. I was taking a ton of it in the 70s and 80s. So, you're not right about everything.
Well, that's fine. I mean,
hey, before we sign off,
a lot, but we can't project what these guys are doing on Thursday nights.
I was going to say, before we wrap up the stream, can we pull up your team? It's hard to follow along and commentate and kind of see. I'm kind of curious how you ended up here.
So 2-6-9-3, Lamar and Stafford at quarterback, running backs Jones, Warren, Chase Brown, Dobbins, Rashawn Johnson, Deneric Prince. See the receivers there: Puka, Debo, Pittman, Kirk, Shakir, Dotson, Polk, Greg Dortch, Andre Yoshivas. And then tight ends, I got Pitts, Likely, and Dulcich.
Yeah. So I like your QBs. I think that's pretty strong. I like that you only took 2. Wide receivers, I like that room. Obviously, it looks like you started off 4 straight. Something I like doing is definitely loading up on the wide receiver room. Your tight end room. Obviously, Pitts is kind of going to be your big bet. Hopefully, we'll see what happens with Likely and Dulcich. I think you've got some good upside there. I think your weakest spot on this particular lineup is running back, but I think it's definitely serviceable. You'll get some, if J.K. Dobbins does run as the number 1, you'll at least have 2 starting running backs out of your 6. I think this is a build where if something broke your way early at running back, this could be a strong roster. If not, this is probably one that kind of comes on stronger as the season progresses. Good build. I'm curious with our friend in the 11 hole didn't take a quarterback till the 17th round. How did he end up?
He finished with McCarthy and Darnold, so he got both. So he locked in the Vikings. So
does he have any other Vikings?
He does not.
No. Okay.
But honestly, that's fine for how he built this. He just needs Russell Wilson to be the starter in week 6.
Yeah.
So a lot of different ways. We talk about some different structures, different ways to approach it on 1 week season with our Best Ball Plus product. So encourage you guys, if you're not subscribers, come check us out. Like I said, on Thursday we will have a price drop. Next Monday, 10 o'clock Eastern, I believe 10 o'clock. Yeah, 10 o'clock Eastern, we're starting. Day of Drafters. It's going to be 4 hours consecutive drafting with several guests. Did I say who was going to be with us next week? I know I told you. I don't think I did it live though.
No, I think you did it live.
Did I? Okay. Well, just to recap, we'll have some subs on. We'll have StatATL. Oh yeah, in the morning, and then Dr. Roto. Follow him on Twitter. He'll be here in that morning segment, as well as Greg from Coach Speak Index. Then we'll have a little break and then have a second segment. Again, that'll be here on YouTube and Twitter /X. So the afternoon segment will be myself. We'll have a couple more Best Ball Plus subs, as well as Hilo Zandemir and the man, the myth, the legend, JM himself joining us. I'm getting him into drafters. I feel like that'll be my biggest. He hasn't been doing best ball, so for him to show up and talk NFL and give us a glimpse of where his mind's at heading into the season, that'll be highly valuable to everyone. So check
Mike,
us out.
I will definitely be back in the afternoon then on Monday. If JM's going to be there, block off the work schedule now.
There we go. Good deal. All right. Well, Billy, thanks for joining us. Everybody, all the viewers, thank you for joining us. Check us out, oneweekseason.com. Check out Drafters. Use our promo code if you're new to it. Don't pass up on that free money. Best of luck. Happy drafting. We will see you in Discord. We will see you on Twitter, and we will see you at the top of the leaderboards. Peace.
1 week season.